Senator Janie Ward-Engelking. How are you?
I'm doing well.
I'm doing well. Happy summer. This is great.
Yeah, it's just going by too fast, and I'm still working pretty hard, and that's kind of awful. I should be having more fun.
Go swimming.
Yeah,
I got you a cup of coffee. I don't know what to tell you. We're all working.
Yeah.
I actually feel bad. I don't feel bad. We've done a bunch of family trips this summer. We were very blessed to go a lot of different places. And then my son asked me the other day, my 11-year-old, he's like, hey, aren't we going to build that go-kart this summer? I'm like, oh my gosh. Because we were gone like forever. And now they're going to go back to school in like 3 or 4 weeks. And I had moved. So it was like, we're scrambling. We're still in boxes. I'm like, okay, where do we work in the go-kart? But yeah, it's flying.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to do it.
When you and I first met, I think it was January of this year during the legislative session, you came in and it was really embarrassing. Like, I didn't even really know what JFAC was.
Well, a lot of people don't. It's not real. It's not real jazzy, but it's really important. Right.
Because again, you're the Joint Finance and Appropriations Committee. So you're the one who's like, okay, man, like we're the check valve for the funding for the state.
Absolutely.
We're appropriating it. And you were saying, look, there's a lot of discussion about these tax breaks. The governor had proposed a $100 million tax break, and people were like, no, we want like $300 million. And then it turned out that it was almost $450 million, all said and done. And again, we also initiated a program for school choice, right? An additional choice, because we already had a lot of school choices for education. School choice was the, hey, $5,000 or $7,500 if you qualify.
Well, it's for private religious schools.
Yes, there you go. And again, paying tuition for the private schools, private religious school, and it's a private school regardless if it's religious or not. There are a lot of private religious schools in the state of Idaho. So we had all these things, and you during the legislative session were saying, which was the first time I had heard it, like, this isn't fiscally responsible. I was like, because most people are argue for tax cuts by saying we need to be more fiscally responsible. Let's give this money back. Your concern was, look, how do we know we're going to have enough money to pay for the things we need if we give all this money back? We now find ourselves in a position where the governor's office is saying, hey, 4 to 6% budget holdback. So like, guys, be prepared that, we don't have enough funding as we had already planned out. Kind of what you were talking about and worried about in January.
Yeah, this was predictable and preventable. I mean, we could see this happening. We overestimated our revenues, and those revenues, we meet with economists and we meet with experts, and they tell us this is where we think the economy's going. This is what we think you're going to be looking at for an increase next year in revenue. And we just ignored their best advice, and we upped those numbers. And then on top of that, we decided not to listen to fiscally responsible people and pass tax cuts that are at least 4 times what we figured was fiscally responsible. And the majority party insisted. I will tell you that the Democrats were very fiscally responsible this year. They voted no on the huge tax cut. They voted yes on the property and the extension increase in the grocery tax credit, because that's $150 million, and we figured we could afford that. Did we like some of the elements in the other bill? Yes, we did. But we hadn't even seen the total impact of the income tax reduction from the previous year. And so now we're looking at, we reduced the income again on corporations and on individuals, and it's ongoing. It's not a one-time deal. It's ongoing every year. We did end the year with about $300 million surplus, but we build that in. JFAC builds a surplus in because...
Oh, so you guys already accounted for it.
Yeah, we built it in. We build it in because we know there's going to be fires. We know there could be some hazardous waste cleanup. We know that there's going to be some budgets that have to come back for a supplemental because it was more than what they anticipated, or there was growth that wasn't anticipated. We always build in a surplus. We leave that amount at the bottom of the page because we know there's going to be some unpredicted or expenses we just don't know. We just don't see in advance. And so
that's just good budgeting, right? In my family budget, it's like, listen, I don't know what's going to happen. But there's going to be like $1,000 of like, what? Next month. I guarantee
Yeah.
it. Like, I don't know what it is. And like, I want that $1,000 to go down, but it's always something, right? It's like the water heater went out or whatever.
Yeah, or there's, vehicles that have to be replaced or something.
sure.
And the state, we have, it's a huge budget. And so we always leave money at the bottom, knowing that we're going to have some expenses that we don't foresee. And so we left $420 million. There's $300 million left right now, but we have just started the fiscal year, just started. So, I mean, we don't know what the fire expenses are going to be when we haven't had that yet. And so I'm very worried because we have taken $453 million off that revenue projection. It won't be there next year. And will we have enough growth to cover everything? Obviously, the governor's worried because he's asked for 2%, 4%, 6% holdback. He doesn't know what we're going to have and absolutely no new spending. So think about that. We're still growing, but we're going to ask agencies not to ask for any new money. So let's just take education. We know there's an $82 million gap between what we receive for special education funding and what it actually costs districts. We can't ask for that money. We know that the federal government is not sending out $33.5 million of money that was already promised to school districts. How are we going to backfill that? We didn't give school districts any new money in discretionary or operation funding. We sent out salary money, and we don't send it out per employee. We send it out based on a classroom, so it covers 1.5 school employees, each classroom. That's it. So we never send out enough money to cover all of the salaries or their health insurance. And now, no new operational money, and we are seeing a holdback on the federal level. And then we already know we are $82 million in trouble in special education, and there's no new state money to fund that.
And the special ed, I had a Stoney Winston in, who's the superintendent of the Fruitland School District,
Right.
I believe. And one of his big points was, look, we have an explosion of special ed need. He said it used to be, it's essentially doubled as a percentage wise of students. He's like, it used to be, I think like 7% of the total student population. Now you're up at like 15% of the total population.
Right.
And we can go back and forth about why, right? Like I have no, like there are probably a lot of reasons, right? But for sure, he said, look, these are students who need way more attention. They need way more resources. And that means that the funding needs from, the state and community to support these students who we have an obligation to educate and support, the obligations and funding needs are only going to become greater.
Exactly. And, the statute's very clear that we have to provide services and in the least restrictive environment, and that the parents have to sign off on all that. So a district is required by law to provide services for these children, and we want to. I mean, school districts want to.
Of course.
We want these kids to get the best possible education. But the funding has not been coming to the districts to cover those expenses. And that's on the state. It's a state responsibility and a federal responsibility. And so those two entities should be providing full funding, and they're not. We're $82 million in the hole in special education funding. And, the reality is we can do better. We have the money. We had the money to cover that, and we knew we had that gap. And instead, we decided to do a voucher program in the state of Idaho. We're 51st in funding per pupil, and yet our kids are performing so much better than most of the students in the nation.
Right. We're absolutely the best bang for the buck in the entire nation.
And so here we are. We know that we could provide at least that $50 million. We could put that into special education. And instead, we decide we're going to support private schools and homeschoolers. And I'm fine.
Is it homeschool? I thought it was only like you couldn't take the money if you're teaching your kid.
Yeah,
it has to be. You can.
You can do like micro schools. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So you can do a little thing with your neighbor, and yeah, you can. There's
essentially like you teach my kid, I teach your kid, and we
Yeah.
both get the $5,000 or something.
and there's
Gotcha.
and besides there's there's no restriction on it. I mean, they don't have to. They're supposed to make sure that the kids stay caught up with kids of their peers, but there's no required testing that we're ever going to see. It doesn't, it's housed under the tax commission. So we'll never know who received the money, and we'll never know how they spent it, nor will we know if the kids are performing. We don't know.
I had Ron Naden actually a couple times, president of IFF, and he actually advocated for a different school choice bill that was, I think it wasn't $5,000, it was like $9,750. And I was chatting with him about it because he said, look, tuition's not $5,000. Like you can't find a private school whose tuition is $5,000. So it really should be, if we're trying to provide options for people who are lower income, it should really be like almost $10,000. And I was like, yeah. I mean, like if that's the goal, that makes sense. Because if your goal is to give more possibilities to people who can't afford it, then you would have to really cover it. Because if it's like, no, you still got to come. I'll give you $5,000, but the tuition is like 12, then I still have to come up with the 7. And I don't have 7 per kid, right? And what's interesting now is I talked to somebody just this morning who's the head of a private school, and she said that their base tuition, they have a tiered tuition based on income. She said the base tuition that they had, this was wild to me, at the private school, the base tuition for the lowest income people was $1,500 last year. Now, the base tuition for the lowest income, and again, they try to be progressive with people who have the money or not. Now the lowest tuition bracket is $6,500. They literally increased the tuition exactly the amount of the voucher or the school choice tax refund, however you want to call it. So for the person who could barely afford the $1,500, they get no relief, right? They're still paying the $1,500. And again, it's like, well, if the tuition goes from $1,500 to $6,500, you're not opening it up. And again, I'm no poo-poo on this person. Like this school didn't make the law. They didn't have a vote they were just like, look, this money is now available and we are going to act accordingly. And it's like, okay, great, fine. Like use whatever rules that are appropriate. It just doesn't open up anything to any new category of people. Like if I didn't have the $1,500 to send my kids to that school and I wasn't making very much money, which I don't, podcasting doesn't pay like a dump truck. But like if I didn't have the $1,500, I still don't have the $1,500 because even if I get the $5,000 tax credit, I don't have the $1,500 on top of that. That do I need?
Well, and we've seen it in other states. This isn't a mystery. We knew this was going to happen, and it's happening with many of the private religious schools also. They just raise their tuition. And the reality...
So you guys have seen this too?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
In Idaho?
We knew ahead of time. We were even told ahead of time by some of the religious schools that they were going to raise their tuition. So we knew it. But the reality is we're subsidizing people that could already afford private school, and we still have to provide opportunities at the public school. They can still take advantage of testing there. They can still take advantage of lots of things that schools provide. Like,
can they do sports and stuff?
I can.
Oh, okay.
I was just going to tell you, one of the things they're doing, they're sending their kids right now to be tested to see if they are special needs kids. The public schools are doing the testing so that they can get $7,500 instead of the $5,000. They have no intention of sending their kids to public schools, but public school has the option of, they don't have the option of turning you away if you need testing. And I've had parents call me and say, my kid's going to, public school, and we love the school, but we're going to take some time and do some traveling because you can do transportation on this. And the other thing, this is a tax credit. I don't know very many Idahoans that spend $5,000, that pay $5,000 in state taxes.
Right. I have 3 boys. It would be $15,000 for me.
Yeah. So when you think about that, that means they're not paying for anything else. They're not paying for roads. They're not paying for fire and police, and because all of that's being deducted before they pay any tax to the state. And that's just crazy to me. We have a responsibility in this state to make sure that we have a good education program, that we have safe roads, that our communities are safe, and we all bear that responsibility. It's not, well, my kids go to private school, so I don't have to pay any of that. That's just ridiculous in my mind.
Yeah, and the increase of people testing for IEPs, special education. What I heard about that essentially right after everything had passed, because there was this huge wave of people going in to get their kids tested, because the average person is like, hey man, I get $5,000, but if you are testing into an IEP, I get $7,500, and great, like I'll take the $7,500. Quick thing just to consider: if your kid tests as special needs, that never goes off their resume. That's on their resume forever. So there's that. Second, the school doesn't have obligations to anything if it takes the $5,000. If you have a child and I have a school and you're like, here's my kid, normal kid, no special education needs. I mean, okay, great, fine. Like, give me the $5,000. But if you come to me and say, hey, Matt, I have a special education or special needs kid, I have $7,500. I now have obligation to serve that child in whatever way. I have an actual obligation if I'm taking the $7,500. Therefore, because of this, I have to take a double look and be like, well, I don't know if I want to take this kid or not, because I'm going to have requirements on top of what I'm already offering.
And if you look at the websites of our private schools, they have right on there that they don't have to take anybody. If it's totally up to them who they accept and who they don't. Right.
It's not just that they don't have to take anybody if they have special needs. They don't have to take anyone, period. Right. They can, I have a friend who's in the LDS church, and she applied for one of the more strict Christian schools in the area. Totally fine. And they didn't take her because she didn't align closely enough with their religious views. Now, again, totally fine for that school to do it. Like, it's none of my affair. I don't know anything about it. Well, but when we start funding things by the state,
right,
you're like, whoa, you rejected that family and you're getting money from us just because she doesn't perfectly align with your particular religious views.
I'm fine with private schools. I'm fine with private religious schools, but the state should not be helping to support them. That is not our role. And, to be fair, religious entities get it. They're nonprofit. They already get some breaks. If you have a school and you do church on Sunday there, they already get a break on their taxes and stuff, on their property taxes. So this isn't it's on top of all those other breaks. It's, you can write off your contribution to a church, on your taxes. Right. So you can take a deduction on your federal and state taxes. So this is on top of that. And the sad thing is, we're at the bottom in funding public school students in Idaho, at the bottom. And yet we're choosing to, and we're not funding special ed appropriately. And we're requiring that school districts put a levy out to be able to afford to do that. And yet we're willing to fund private schools that don't even have to take them. That's just not right.
Senator Lent is going around the state with, and really talking to a lot of people, reimagining Idaho education. And one of the things he was articulating when I was talking to him is, look, pretty much everybody agrees that schools are overburdened with regulations, right? This money is going out with no regulations, federal or state, right? What do you think about decreasing the regulations, at least on the Idaho side, for Idaho public schools?
Well, we had a bill this year. It was
Indeed,
one that I sponsored it, and
I didn't know you sponsored it.
No, yeah,
okay.
Along with, and I got Dave Lent, Senator Lent, to sign on it with me, and some other people, and it was just to say, let's even the playing field.
Sure.
If charter schools are high performing, they don't have to do the same type of reporting that public schools. So why not the same for public schools? If we can provide, charter schools are public schools in Idaho, and if we can fund them at a higher level because they can't do a levy or a bond, well, why can't we do that for school districts that can't pass one? If we're sending out about 2,000 more per student, why don't we do that for districts that can't pass one, or for all districts? Let's take away all the levies and fund all of our school kids the same as we do charter schools. And we send out $400 per student for charter schools for facilities. Let's do the same for public schools, and then we don't have to do this bonding because we hate those property taxes anyway. And so our bill was just, let's level the playing field. If a district wants to become a charter, let them become a charter. And if they're high performing, they don't have to jump through all those regulatory hoops. And I think that's fair. And we have a lot of high-performing public schools in Idaho, and it just makes sense to me to level the playing field.
Now, if you're a charter, you don't have to take, like, this is one of the grand distinctions, right? People talk about the success of charter schools, and you have to, that kind of comes with an asterisk because, like, okay, first off, you're just talking about the charter schools who have been successful. You're not talking about the charter schools that failed to financially, survive and went out of business essentially, right?
But now we're funding a commission that actually helps those charter schools not go out of business.
Great.
So, we're going to help improve them. Sure. Yeah, that was the whole idea. If you don't do well, you go out of business.
Right.
Because we're not going to fund you if you're not doing a good job.
Right.
But
so they potentially go out of business. And so we are only viewing the charter schools that have still, stood the test of time, and they get to select their students. Or
the ones that, are on an improvement plan that the state's funding. But yes, and I'm okay with that too, except let's recognize that they don't have to provide the sports. They can do sports at a public traditional school. And when they go play sports there, they're not paying. The public school's not getting any money for them, for the coaches or for the busing to the games or anything like that. The public schools are picking that up. They also can take advantage of testing and speech therapy and things like that. And that's all great. I mean, because we want kids to be serviced well, but let's just level the playing field. Let's just say, okay, let's make sure that all schools are getting adequate funds for the children they're serving. And if we're doing that, then who cares whether that's a charter school or public school? That's all great. I love it.
Right.
Parents get a lot of choice. And we are, just to be clear, we rank third in the nation in Idaho, even before vouchers, for the choice that we provide parents.
Oh, the number of different ways they can educate their children.
Open enrollment and career technical education and blended online and in-person studies and dual credits. There's just so many things that we provide that we were already providing a ton of choice. The only thing we weren't doing is funding private schools with state taxpayer dollars with no accountability.
Yeah, and that last piece really, that always seemed like it for me. Like, I'm not against contractors. The government uses contractors all the time. Like, SpaceX is a contractor. It's like we have contractors all the time, and we just say, hey, man, you got to do these things, right? Like, you can't kill anybody. You got to mow the lawn just right. You got to do these things. And if you can do this and you can turn a profit, good for you.
Yeah.
If you can create efficiencies
in
our system. Right. No problem. But that's not the same as the government-run agency has these regulations and the contractors have no regulations. Yeah. Like, that's not a mechanism that finds representation in places.
And the reality is the Idaho Constitution is very clear that we are to fund K-12 public education, and it's to be free, it's to be thorough, and it's to be common and adequate. And I would venture to say that if we have $300 million being levied by local school districts throughout the state, there are some districts that have and some that have not, because we have districts that can't pass their levies. And so the ones that can have, the ones that can't have not. And that's not equal. That's not, we're not giving every child the same opportunity.
I had the superintendent of Middleton in, Mark Gee. And they were attempting to pass a bond. They really need another school there. And the city council has taken this very specific stance, which is like, listen, man, if we're over a certain capacity of these schools, you can't build here. Like, because we're like, the growth is not, the people, they can't pass a bond, so we're losing quality of service as more and more and more people move in, and like we have to preserve our schools. And this is causing people like CBH Home to donate land and do these things. But even with donated land, even with reduced cost, even with stripping away programs, I think the bond was for like $19 million or something to build out the school. They couldn't get it passed.
No,
they couldn't get passed. I mean, and you need two-thirds vote.
And we have one of the most restrictive criteria.
Yeah.
I mean, we require 2/3, and that means 1/3 of the people can outvote. You know, the need for a new school doesn't always matter.
Right.
You know, because if you don't have a kid at school or a kiddo at school, or you know, or you don't have grandchildren there, you may or may not want to have your property taxes go up.
Right.
It should be done at the state level. We've made a little headway there, but not enough. And, you know, we have work to do. And the reality is the situation, the budget crisis we find ourselves in, we created. And it was preventable and predictable. And we're not taking care of the things that are required for us to fund in the Idaho Constitution. And that should bother everybody.
Is JFAC involved with the funding or appropriating towards wildfire management? Because we're coming into August, and everybody I've spoken with, again, I'm not a Forest Service guy, I'm not a firefighter guy, but everyone I've spoken with is like, man, it's going to be a bloodbath this year because of lack of precipitation and just fuel and all of these different things.
Well, and we've seen almost every year between 60 and 80 million is spent on wildfires for probably the last 5 years, something like that. And we've taken federal money and we've put it into an account to help pay for that. But this year, I think the governor asked for 60 million. I think we put in 30 million, or maybe it was 80 and we put in 40. I'm not sure. We did half of what the governor asked for. And we'll probably be okay this year because we have a reserve. But again, we're looking at reduced revenue, and we're still going to have those expenses next year. So the governor is recommending absolutely no new spending for next year's budget, plus the holdback from this year's budget. So I'm concerned. I knew this was going to happen. I mean, you do your budget at home, and you have to have a little bit of common sense before you start saying, well, I can buy this new car and I can do this, and then I can go on all these wonderful vacations. You've got to make sure you have enough to pay your bills. And we did, but then we cut the revenue source, and that's going to be ongoing. And so I'm concerned if we have enough growth, we'll probably be okay. But we saw a $141.5 million reduction in sales tax revenue. And that kind of tells the story that people aren't feeling quite as optimistic about the economy as they did before. And granted, that pandemic money dried up. So that's part of it. But it makes me nervous.
Yeah. Is there anything else? Because again, I don't talk to legislators and whatnot daily now. Is there anything else coming around the corner that you think people should be paying attention to?
Well, I think the big awful bill is kind of out there, and nobody knows for sure what the cuts are going to be, but we know there will be some. There'll be some in Medicaid, and the sad thing is it's mostly children, disabled, veterans, and seniors that are on Medicaid. There's a very small percentage that are the working poor, but they're actually working. They just don't make enough to qualify for a subsidy on the exchange, so they have to qualify for Medicaid. I'm concerned because we're seeing quite a huge jump in insurance premiums, and also we know that if the hospitals have to take these people even if they're uninsured. So if we cut these people, they're not on Medicaid, the only place they can go to get health care is the emergency room, and it's the most expensive care that we have. And as that increases, and we no longer have the CAT fund, the catastrophic fund. We no longer have any funds that take care of those people at the county or the city or the state level. So it'll all have to come from, I don't know, hospitals, I guess. And
But hospitals run at like a 1% to 2% margin, don't they?
I know. So what are they going to do? They're going to have to raise the costs on all the rest of us to pay for it. So to think that Medicaid, cutting people off Medicaid is going to save anybody money, it might save the state a dime or two, but it's going to cost every single individual in Idaho more money. So that worries me. Coming down the road, that worries me. And what else will be on the chopping block? I don't know. Launch, scholarships for kids going to college. Kids that are doing training. We already know that the universities have been asked to cut back, and they've already gotten research grants have been cut. Their federal dollars have been cut. So there's some problems out there that we're going to have to maneuver and manage. And I hate the fact that we cut ourselves thin on revenue when we knew these federal holdbacks were coming. And we'd already seen that some of the cuts had been made with DOGE. So the state usually has to backfill that.
Can I ask you something
Sure.
about higher education in particular? Because we're
Sure.
talking about education.
Yeah.
You hear all kinds of problems about schools in Salmon or Chalice or, Marsing produces great results. One gentleman I know has a son who's going on to run D1 track, and he was running around the Marsing track, which is a dirt track.
Yeah,
it's like,
dirt
wow,
track.
man.
I know. That's what my grandkids learned on.
Yeah, right. Like, you got a dirt circle and you somehow figured out how to run fast enough on your dirt circle that now you're going to real college. Like, it's great. You hear about that. You don't hear about that at higher education, right? And the unbelievable outpacing of inflation that higher education has experienced over the last, 20-ish years. So I started at Cal in 2000.
Uh-huh.
The tuition was $4,000 total for the year. When I graduated in 2004, it was $8,000. So it doubled in just 4 years. 4 years, doubling. And there are these costs that's I get very concerned about the fact that we have this, ballooning student debt that you can never get out of. It is the only debt where you are legit like an indentured servant for life. You can bankrupt out of a car, out of a vacation. I think we should start getting like $100,000 credit cards and just charge the entire college thing on the credit card and then be like, bankrupt.
Yeah.
That's a bad idea. But my point is if you did that, you could go to Europe. You could go travel Europe and get an incredible European history education in the flesh, and then you could declare bankruptcy and that debt would be wiped out. But if you go to college for a year and rack up $50,000 worth of debt studying, ancient Greek history, you're never, ever, ever bankrupting out of that debt. That very similar to the private school tuition. That to me, I feel, and again, I'm not bright on this one, so help me out, but I feel like that has contributed to a ballooning of cost for people because they're like, dude, we're always getting this money back. Like before we had to worry about a certain number of students, that would default. Now nobody's defaulting. Might take us a little bit longer. Might have to take it out of their Social Security, but we're going to get that money. We're going to get made whole.
Well, and the reality is the state universities, we started underfunding them, they've probably always been underfunded, but the state we're about 13% less than what we used to send the universities and the colleges, state universities and colleges. And that started during the Great Recession. It's never been made up. And so the only places the colleges and universities can make up the difference is with tuition and fees. And so that's why you're seeing an increase there. I think our universities and colleges in Idaho, our state university and colleges have done a masterful job of keeping the costs down. They froze tuition for 4 years, didn't raise it at all. But when we don't provide the funds at the state level, and this year, University of Idaho and Boise State University took a $4 million cut in the funding that they were expected to receive.
Sure.
And that's, it's problematic. It's problematic for those kids that are going there. But they do really great things. I don't know if you know, our universities are ranked in the top 10% in the nation.
Yeah, higher education. People don't know that. Higher education, I think, at least the higher education in Idaho per U.S. News is number, I believe, 11th in the entire country. 11th. And you're like, okay, I would not anticipate that Idaho had like an 11th best out of all of our states. Higher education.
Yeah.
But here's a question for you, though. I don't dispute that. Like, I actually reached out to the director of the material science department because I really want to talk to her about the different material sciences that are going to be required as we engage more nuclear programs, because like you get to deal with incredible heats and all of these different things, right? So I don't disagree that they have that. What I'm wondering is like, why is education so expensive? At times, here's a criticism I have of the state that shall not be named, my former and my alma mater, UC Berkeley. Okay. When I graduated a couple years later, in the midst of financial problems, they redid a $500 million football stadium, all while they were cutting classes and decreasing things. And one of the criticisms I heard of some people of this system is like, they're essentially becoming an entertainment hub that you go to class to as well. Like the focus of college 50 years ago was literally going to get an education, go to material science, go to English, go to whatever. And like, this is college. This is not a vacation. Now it's like these gigantic dining halls, $500 million stadiums, things of that nature. And I don't know if that's an appropriate view, but it is something that has given me pause, which is like, why has this outpaced inflation so egregiously? And why are we all using it kind of like as a semi-pro athletic league that we just enjoy watching?
Well, and it has moved more that direction. But I will tell you, the pockets of money are different. And a lot of that money, and especially for new buildings, it's an endowment money, or it's money that is given by people in the community, and it's for a specific purpose.
So it's not a net drain on the university.
No, like
Gotcha.
The Micron building. That was Micron. They wanted that new science building. They wanted that built. And so the money they gave, that's where it has to be used for that. It can't be used to do something else.
Well, God bless it. That's great then. If you're like, hey, Matt, you're looking at it kind of wrong. Like these are kind of sectioned off.
And I don't know that that's true about everything, but I know that as far as the football stadiums and stuff, a lot of that is from the athletic department. It's money that they receive from playing bowl games or whatever.
Gotcha.
And so now, I can't say that's true about everything. And
Sure.
And I do know that when they do research, and that's where I think it's critical for the state, because that research is very expensive. But it helps us figure out what works with our forests, and it helps us figure out the diseases that our crops are being subjected to, and how we prevent it, and how we get better use of water in the state, and all of that. So that
I'm not anti-education or
I know
anti-knowledge,
but I'm just saying that's very expensive.
Yes.
And so as that is increased, I think you're seeing additional expenses.
I get all that. I think the thing that kind of just stuck out to me that I was curious about is like, you see kindergartners in bad positions, right?
Yeah.
You hear about a first grader who has to cross a highway to use a bathroom in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
Okay. That's reality in the state of Idaho for some elementary kids.
Yep.
You do not see
or a roof falling in,
or a roof falling in, or a sewer pipe broken underneath the cafeteria. Like all of these things are real problems that the state education system is experiencing, and everybody's, like 95% of people are young people are going to our public schools, K through 12, right? So 95% of the state, when you're a youth, going to these public schools. A very small percentage of the state goes to higher education. Yeah. Right? Or a much smaller percentage of the state goes to higher education. They're not crossing the street, and they're like 20 years old to go to the bathroom. Yeah. Yet like the 7-year-old has to cross the street in the middle of winter to go to the bathroom. And so that's just kind of like why is it that way?
Well, and to be fair, the state doesn't pay anywhere close to 100% of the state and colleges. the kids pay for it, the students pay for it.
Sure.
And that's why, and as our level of funding has dropped from the state, then their tuition and their fees have gone up. And so that's, I think you if you look at that, you would see that, okay, the state's paying less now, so the students have to pay more. So the costs are, tuition and fees are much higher than they used to be.
That's a fair point. I don't even know. I didn't think about that. Of course, you have people paying tuition. Right.
Yeah.
Like, of course. And maybe they get loans and stuff. And if they get loans, that's, that is a decision that they can make.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's hard.
Hey.
And we don't like it.
Do you think that we're going to start getting student loans for K through 12? Come on.
Well,
Come on. This is not out of the realm of possibility.
You don't think that's what we're doing right now for vouchers? They're not getting a loan. They're getting a gift. We're gifting the money.
I get that, but I'm dying for the time when it's like you leave K through 12 and your parents are like 130 in student loan debt. It's going to be like, have we all gone mad?
Well,
like, this is crazy.
I hope that doesn't happen, but there are some people, they're in the legislature, that think government should not be funding public education. And if that happens and public education goes away, of course you'll have to have parents borrowing money to send their kids to school. Absolutely they will, because majority of people in Idaho can't afford private schools, and they don't have private schools. So they'd have to take out a loan to fund the public. And in some ways, they already do. When they have to pass a levy, they're taxing their property.
Okay.
To pay.
Let's have a little thought experiment here. Just a quick one.
Okay.
I know you got to go, but okay. Let's say that we eliminate public school. Okay. Mm-hmm. First off, you're going to save, let's say in the case of West Ada, I think it's like $6,000 a year per student. Okay. You save that money. How much do you think the Idaho Department of Corrections budget would skyrocket if we didn't have, okay, so that's one, right? And that's statewide agency, right? So you save the $6,000, which is K through 12, we're looking at what, like $78,000?
Yeah, and now
And now it's like $60,000 per person per year in Department of Corrections.
Yeah.
What do you think ISP's budget would have to do, right? As we have people that potentially wouldn't have access to any education at all. And so drugs, theft, and prostitution are the only options on the table. Right. Okay. Here's another one. There are a lot of problems in my former state, and that's not the point. But one thing that they're very good at doing is attracting a certain base level of intellectual capacity to the university system, specifically Berkeley and Stanford. Those people go, and therefore, and businesses hover around there or are created there because in the instances of people going to those schools and saying, "Hey, this is going too slow. I got an idea. Hey, drop out with me, Janie. Let's go start this company. We're roommates. Let's go."
Yeah.
And so they just literally move out of the apartment that they were, and they move down the street. And they're like, "Okay, we're starting our business. We're starting PayPal right here. Right. I'm 2 blocks away from Stanford."
Yeah.
So you accumulate, and again, whatever the policies are, like those companies only exist because you have a high concentration of capable people creating those companies. And then other companies come because like, dude, maybe we could poach some of the PhD students. Don't finish the PhD. We'll give you signing bonus, $200,000 right now. Come work for us.
Or just go audit the classes and don't pay for them.
Yeah, all day. So like, how much would it cost the state to eliminate, like what would the net negative be in GDP in GDP, in additional costs to like ISP and IDOC and all of these things? Like, what do you think the net negative cost would be if we eliminated public education? Well, just as a thought experiment.
Well, I have no idea what the financial cost is, but I can tell you what the personal cost would be to people. And we would no longer have a democracy, and that would be gone because it requires that you have an educated citizenry to have a democracy. That would be gone. You would have a very class society. It's getting there now, but it would be total class. There would be people that have money and people that have nothing, and they wouldn't have the ability to go to school. So we'd have children working. They'd be 4 and 5 years old working. And that whole thought is frightening. I can't even go there, and I can't even worry about the financial cost. I'm worried about the
human
people.
suffering.
Yeah.
Is there any first world country anywhere that doesn't have free like K through 12? Is that a thing in England or something, or like?
Well, I know they have they still have a public school system like in England. It's not as robust as ours.
Sure.
And
They also don't have Google.
yeah.
Like
Yeah, or a
they
lot
don't
of
have Apple.
And a lot of those people a lot of people in those countries come to the U.S. to go to college.
Oh, yeah.
Because our
grad school is
system,
so phenomenal that they're like, hey, look, man,
Yeah,
let's go over there.
Yeah. So, but they have some form of public education, but I think they also have a very robust private education system too. And so a lot of times you see two class of people, some that are going to be worker bees and some that get to have the opportunity to make their own path and be more creative.
One thing I heard, and again, I know you got to go. One thing I heard years ago about the United States is that one of the beauties of it is that you have endless opportunities to screw up and then pick yourself back up.
Yeah.
Right. And I have family members who flunked out of high school and ended up getting PhDs. Like my dad almost flunked out of high school, went to Vietnam, used the GI Bill, came back.
Yeah.
And he's a physician, right? Like I was born when he was in medical school and I was the fourth kid, right? You have opportunities just falling out of the sky here, and you can, not engage them and then start engaging them in other places. I have dear friends from Germany and all across Europe. They're like, it is not like that. Like you start getting separated by like
Very early
8,
age,
9,
yeah.
10. And, one of my friends continued to make these separations and like get to the top tier of student. He was like, but if I hadn't said yes when I was 10, I would have been, I was in the janitorial class. Right? That's essentially it.
Well, and that's what worries me a little bit about some of where we're requiring kids at a very young age to take tests and kind of pick a career, because I really think the joy and the beauty of our system is that they can experience everything until they get in high school, and they can experience all different things and be exposed to a lot of different opportunities. And I hate to see that go away. I always get a little nervous when we start saying CTE is everything.
Right.
It's certainly an important part of education, but it's not everything. And you're right. Children deserve multiple opportunities. I totally expect children to fail at something sometime when I was teaching. That's what they do. That's why they have me. I get to pick them up and show them another way. I get to pick them up, and that's what as parents, we do it all the time.
I feel like, it would be great, and we'll leave this one for another day. It would be great if we removed the requirement for a free, accessible, equitable public education across the state, and we let the counties take it over, or like or the district the legislators come from. And it's like, hey man, if you are your elected representative, like your county or your area, you get to vote. Do you guys want to have a public school system or just go all private and homeschool? Whatever you want. And then we would see the fallout of that. Like, have at it, man. And then we would see where people moved, right? We would see what the benefit is, but we don't have any of that comparison. So I feel like people engage in this, what I would consider thought experiment. Like, what if we just eliminate public education? It's like, okay, but there's no way for you to do that. So, you can beat that drum, but it's like, what if we just let them have it? It's like, go for it.
Well, and so often these kids
This would be wild, Janie.
I know,
This would be
would be wild. And I can't go down that road because it scares me to death. But
you don't have to live in that county, though. Like, you can move to whatever county you want.
Kids might, and I'm just going, oh my gosh. But the reality is, we have safety nets, and parents can homeschool their kids, but often when they got to be junior high age, they sent them back because it got hard. It got hard when they became teenagers, and so they sent them back to public school, and teachers got to pick up the pieces and fill in the voids. And same with private schools. A lot of these kids get kicked out. We get them. Public school. Public schools are the safety net, and we want opportunities for everybody, regardless. They deserve an opportunity. Now, are they going to get treated exactly the same? No, but they're going to have opportunities. I don't believe that you treat every single child exactly the same. They're all individuals. They have unique needs, but they're
and
all
one's your favorite.
Yeah, well, the naughty ones, obviously, usually, but anyway, they deserve opportunities.
Sure.
And that's what it's all about.
Well, Senator, thank you for coming in today.
Well, thank you.
I know we screwed up the timing earlier. Not we, that's the royal we. I screwed up the time or the location earlier. We had the right time,
Yeah,
wrong.
we did. Yeah, we did. It's fine.
But we
though.
made it together. Thank you
Yeah,
for making the time. Thanks for
absolutely.
coming in and explaining this. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your summer.
Yeah, you too.